In the cases of Janovich and MJ Stewart, it is believed that these guys will be candidates to return in a few weeks. And again, it's a minimum of 3 games missed. In addition, the team has also signed Joe Jackson and fullback Johnny Stanton to the active roster from the practice squad. They've activated Tim Harris from the practice squad COVID-19 list and signed tackle Alex Taylor, who was with the team, to the practice squad. So Harris is on the practice squad. Alex Taylor is on the practice squad. Joe Jackson, Johnny Stanton are on the active roster, and I would think there is still 1 active roster spot empty right now. And again, that could be for the return of Jarvis Landry, which we'd certainly hope it would be.
Yeah, certainly so. And we expect this is going to be something we're just going to have to follow all week, because obviously Coach wasn't comfortable yesterday, and we just didn't have the information to give a full injury report of everything of the fallout that happened on Sunday in Los Angeles. Can you read anything into that at all, based on the fact that this is who it's limited to?
Yeah, I think you can read into it. Good. This is good.
Good news.
This is a good sign that Greedy Williams was not on this list, that Denzel Ward was not on this list, that Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who said that he is fine and good to go, but that he's not on this list. So, yeah, I think you can read a lot of positive things. Jack Conklin not on this list. The guys that you are concerned about the most, it sounds like, are all going to be in relatively better shape. And the sense that I got from talking to people in the organization is that, yes, they were going to be without some players this week. We now know a couple of them. But that the feeling was they were going to be in better shape than it was initially feared coming out of L.A. So if that holds true, and that is the case, then that would be a good thing for the Browns.
Yeah, absolutely would. How much of that game – well, you're not an early riser. You probably got through all that game last night then, didn't you?
I mean, I take some offense to what you just said. I believe I am an early riser. I wake up with a 7 on the clock, and I realize it's not early. There are people at 6, 5.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I would have thought an 8. I would have thought an 8 would have been in play for you.
No.
I never hear from him before 8 a.m.
So you think that
I'm just throwing it out there.
You think I wake up and the first thing I want to do is go get on my phone? No.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of do sometimes. I thought I was going to have to tell you to tone it down a little bit because Uncle Beau had other obligations this morning. I thought you were just rolling right through that. Hey, you can play with your friend again at 12 o'clock.
That's right. We get back and play together. It's so funny. I've seen this a lot going around today, and I just think it's remarkable on the social with this notion that, that's what Lamar Jackson did last night, and he was sensational. I'm not taking away from – he was sensational.
Yeah, you can't take it.
And it's frightening. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's frightening how good he played.
Yep.
Yeah, because they're 4-1 now, and he was
they
just
could be 1-4
extraordinary in the game all across the board. Of course. Yeah. But the one thing I saw that it's hard for me to wrap my head around is, and I've seen this a lot this morning, was, well, that's what Baker Mayfield needs to do for the Browns. And I'm thinking to myself, we played the Chargers. They played the Colts. If you can't see the difference, I can't help you. We would not be in that position against the Colts. The Colts are not a good football team. Baker did that last year against Cincinnati. That's the equivalent of what you saw last night. He did it. Let us write down and score. Look, we talked about this a lot yesterday. Those are not apples to apples. The Chargers and the Colts are not like comparisons. They're not the same thing. Lamar Jackson's more accomplished. He won a unanimous MVP. No one's going to argue that.
Yeah.
No one's arguing that. I'm not here to argue that. But the notion that what Lamar did yesterday was on a level playing field of what Baker was trying to do with 90 seconds left against the Chargers is frankly nonsense. They're not the same thing.
They are not the same thing. There's a lot to unpack here. Number one, Lamar Jackson has made an evolution as a pocket passer that is, in this game anyway, was very impressive to watch.
Yes.
In the history of the National Football League, no quarterback ever has had a higher completion percentage in a game in which they've thrown 40 passes than Lamar Jackson did last night.
Yep.
He only completed one pass from outside the pocket in that second half when basically all of this went down. This is an offense now with Lamar. I think he's 5th in passing and 6th in rushing. I saw some crazy stat like that in the league. That's nuts. But when him playing like this,
he's got more yards than like 6 teams.
Teams. That's right, including Gibbe's favorite, the 49ers, where he's put him on the hot seat.
Numerous people have backed that up this week. Just throwing it out there.
And
I saw one that said other coaches have been fired for less.
Just wait till Friday or Thursday. Friday. Yeah, Friday for Chester Gibbe. Let's relax a little. It's just a Tuesday. Let's take it easy. That's a team now that I feel may have found its actual offensive identity for this year in the second half, which is Hollywood Brown. That double move was elite. His speed is elite. That's never been a question. Andrews in the middle. And now, see, what they're going to get back in Rashad Bateman.
Yep.
Who he will be 3rd and 8. We need 9. He's going to run a great route, get open, and you can get it to him. You're not going to be able to stop them all over the field. Now, if Lamar remains this accurate because of his ability to buy time, his ability to extend plays, and his ability to, frankly, run right out of the pocket as well, which he did last night. I mean, he had one play where he forced it felt like the entire team to miss him in a tackle, and it didn't even look like he was trying to run that fast. And yet he would just stop and people would fly by, and it was nuts. That was a scary game, and it's insane that they could easily be 1-4. The longest field goal in history after a 4th and 19 conversion in Detroit, a Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumble in field goal range to win that game for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then this one, if Rodrigo can just make a field goal, one blocked, the next one missed, like, come on. They're 1-4, but they are.
They've gotten every break.
And they've capitalized on them as well.
Yes, they make their breaks. Yeah.
And this version of the Baltimore Ravens is way scarier to me than the running version of the Baltimore Ravens. Because if it is true now, this was a game, you would have said this game script when it was, 7-10, 22, 25-6?
Yeah.
That it's over.
It's over. All the Ravens can't chase games.
Well,
or can they?
I mean, if Indy's supposed to have anything, it's their defense.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's an outfit in complete disarray. Is what that that's
a horrific loss.
Complete disarray. Yeah, that team is in disarray. But it's all of those things can be true, and all of the accolades and all of the praise that is given to that offense and Lamar, they are appropriate and it is true, and they are 4-1, and they are look, they've been the team to beat in this division. They remain that at this point. They remain that. We have to go beat them. We have to go earn that. Your point is also well made in terms of how close they are to being in a very, very different situation. That's the NFL, and they're able to come out on the good side of that more often than not. But the notion that was somehow him coming back from 25-7, 25-6 down against the Bills or the Chargers, it was not that. That was not what that was. That's a bad Colts team that they came back down from and won. And you give him credit for it, and he was sensational, obviously. But the idea that Baker has to somehow be linked to that, I just don't understand that. And if you can't see the difference, I can't help you because you can't see. It's really that simple. So they're going to get the Chargers this weekend, by the way.
Yeah, and that'll be a good game.
Baltimore is.
That'll be a very good game. And for the Browns, right now we're second in the division. We had a chance to control our own fate, and now we don't have that. Now we get the Ravens obviously still twice later on in the season. We haven't played a single division game yet. But that would have been a big one. You look at like opponents. So far they've beaten the Chiefs. We did not. Now they will play the Chargers, and they could have a 2-0 advantage there if they can win that game in games where we've had a common opponent. There isn't a reason to make these comparisons, and Baker has done it and led this team back against teams that are inferior in the past. Now, to your point, if this had happened against the Bills, the Chargers, okay, you make a statement and you say that's because that's the one thing on our team, and it's not on Baker. But the one thing on our team is the last 4 times we have been in close games in the fourth quarter against teams of consequence. We have not gotten it done. And that's the thing that's left for this team if it wants to achieve its Super Bowl goals is to how to figure out to win those games because you're going to need to do it in the playoffs.
Yep.
And we are now, we are the best leading and neutral script offense in the league, I think, from an efficiency standpoint. But it's when that you've got to have it. 3 minutes left in Kansas City, 3 minutes left against the Chargers, in the playoff game against Kansas City when you got the ball back down 5. Those are the possessions that ultimately are going to be judged, because those are the ones that are going to determine wins and losses. But this is an offense that is playing well. We haven't turned the ball over in 3 straight games.
Right.
Okay? We're 2-1 in that span. In the game that we lost, our offense put up 42 points, over 500 yards of offense, and averaged nearly 8 yards per play. And everybody's going to go back to that 3-minute drive, because ultimately, for a variety of reasons, some including the officials, some including their excellent offense, our defense's ability or inability to get off the field on 4th downs. We could have ended this game in the 3rd quarter. Didn't. We still had a chance to win it. Didn't. And that's, I think, the people are way in this mindset right now, which to me is a little nuts. We haven't turned the ball over on offense in 3 straight games. We're taking care of the football. We are doing the things to put ourselves in position to win these games, and we easily could have been 3-0. In the 2 games where you had a need for shootouts, we put up a combined 71 points.
Yep.
And now you'd say, well, we needed to probably put up 80. Okay, but that's not always the easiest thing in the world to do. Baker's averaging almost 9 yards an attempt. His touchdown-interception ratio is now 2-1. And frankly, the 4 touchdowns feels a little low just because we've got, 10 rushing touchdowns already.
Right. Yeah, it does. The crazy thing is the comeback and the play of Lamar Jackson was not even the headline in the NFL coming out of last night. The headline in the NFL coming out of last night, and frankly, not even the NFL, but really around the country, revolves around John Gruden, who stepped down in Las Vegas after this was initial report in the Wall Street Journal of these emails. There were 650,000 emails that the NFL investigators are combing through. In those emails, it was reported in the Wall Street Journal, I believe on Friday, that John Gruden made some racial comments in that, and that led to him apologizing in the game after his game on Sunday. You will remember that the NBC Football Night in America crew, Mike Tirico, Tony Dungy, vouched for Gruden based on the information that they had at that time.
Yep.
Since then, more information has come out. The New York Times with a story yesterday that got its hands on a lot more emails. And the spread of his tone was across. No one was immune from it. Every sort of everything that could be touched by it was by his emails. These emails are between him primarily and Bruce Allen, who is a longtime executive in the NFL with the Washington football team. Before that, in Oakland with the Raiders. These are coming to light now. You will say, well, why is the NFL investigating John Gruden? The NFL is not investigating John Gruden. The NFL is investigating the Washington football team. And John Gruden at the time was actually working for ESPN, not the Washington football team. But these emails were captured in this investigation into the Washington football team. If you want to know what's been going on there the last 20 years, you can do a simple Google search. The Washington Post has covered it at a very high level, and there is a lot going on there. There is no information, and no emails have leaked from that side.
Which
this
is a
was
surprise.
John Gruden.
Which is a surprise.
No, is it?
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It's not. Because, of course, here, look at this big, shiny, flashy, noisy thing over here, and let's ignore this thing over here. And so I think that's kind of what happened here. Gruden was justifiably fired. I don't think you could argue that the actions, his actions and the words in that email are absolutely fireable offense.
Yeah.
No one is saying that.
Right.
But also, I do find it odd that he was not, of course, the target or the one being investigated, and he was doing this on his personal email versus the work email of Bruce Allen, who was a high-level executive with the Washington football team. So what I would say in all of that is that there is going to be a lot more to come on this thing.
I don't think there's any doubt about the second part of it. Yeah, there is going to be a lot more to come, and I think that, it's just he is where he should be now, which is obviously out of the league.
Yes.
It's just kind of a stunning thing that this just all comes out on Friday.
48 hours?
There is quite a bit of it that was directed at the commissioner of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that singular fact boded well for his ability to sustain his employment, let alone, which he wouldn't have, given everything that had nothing to do with Goodell that was contained in these emails.
Yeah.
And yet, right now, we still know nothing about Dan Snyder, who is, as an owner, feels like is just a little bit more protected.
Yes.
This is going to be a very interesting situation to see how this unfolds. And it is, I think, a stunning thing that, and Mike Florio talked about it pretty bluntly, I thought, that they leaked the first thing, or the first thing got out. How does it get from this investigation to the New York Times?
Yeah.
That's a question that should be answered at some point. And it sounded like they were hoping that the Friday leak would be enough. And then it was just basically going to keep going until it became enough. Because remember, he was not an NFL employee at that time.
No, he worked for ESPN.
Right.
He was doing Monday Night Football at this time.
Which is a stunning thing for ESPN as they covered it. And I think they were in a very unique and challenging spot. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be. But that second point was not acknowledged at any point during Monday Night Football.
I think Levy did say it, or maybe Schefter, when they made the initial announcement in the game last night. Either Schefter or Levy acknowledged
it was not
that he was working at ESPN at that time.
It was not.
No, but how would they have known? It's not like they would have known. I mean, this is from his private email sent to people. He's known Bruce Allen for 30 years. They worked together in the Raiders in the late 90s and early 2000s. So how in the heck would you ever have known at that time? And you wouldn't have. The other thing I would say at that time is that I remember when I was in television, it wasn't until about 2000, I would say around 2011, 2012, when the television station that I worked for down in Columbus said, hey, we monitor the things you send on your station email. Like for the longest time, you weren't even aware that was wait, hold on a second.
Yeah,
this is all, somebody can monitor this?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like you thought the notion at that, now that's all, we all know that, right? We all know that. And that's part of life now. But at that time, the thinking was that this was a private exchange, right? And that it would never go beyond the two of them. And what it is a little bit is a window, and I mean this in the most negative context, into kind of the old boys club locker room mentality of the NFL, that the NFL has gone to great lengths to eliminate in the last decade.
There's no doubt that there are many people in the NFL today who are freaked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guarantee that there would be things in scouting reports that would be thought of as casual conversations or way to drive a point home about a player that would not pass the test.
Yeah.
And so I have a hard time kind of trying to reconcile certain actions from a certain time versus today's sensibilities.
Yep.
Now, in Gruden's case, he doesn't even have that defense. Like, well, it was okay that – no, that was never okay.
No.
But in certain instances of things like this, and I would say this is not a cancel culture, if you were to put that label on it. This is a guy basically had a lot of isms that you could put at the end of various bad things that were exposed quite fully and candidly, and thus he is not able to be employed by the National Football League, by the Las Vegas Raiders. this is just, you have to wonder where it goes and how this will be ultimately. Does this open a floodgates in the National Football League? Does this make the league say, let's put a muzzle on it? Like, why? How did it get there? I think the ramifications for Gruden are immense. Now, no surprise to us that his tenure in Vegas never made sense with the deal that he was given.
No.
And that it was going to end in flames and rather spectacularly, but not like this.
No.
This was never a thought, but you just wonder, where does this go and what are the, what is the fallout league-wide from this?
Well, yeah, I think that's valid, and I'm reminded of Donald Sterling, the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers, and at the time, there were so many allegations against him, but it took actually being able to see it and read it for there finally to be okay, this is enough. That's what it took, and a big part of that is because ownership in the NBA did not want to set the precedent that you could force a sale. This is a really hard club to get into, owning an NFL team, owning an NBA team. It's a hard club to get into. And once you get in, it's generationally you're set up. And so that's the last thing those guys wanted, right, was to open the doors to that. And then it got to the point where it was too much. And I wonder if this you're talking about 650,000 emails in that organization. Some of the stuff that Gruden was sharing with Allen.
Yeah.
That's the type of stuff that can lead to that. So I'm with you. The tentacles of it are far, far reaching. We mentioned Baker Mayfield, Rich Eisen on that. Go ahead. Quick point.
I should say one thing, too, is that the NFL is so much of a relationship business.
Yep.
And so when you're looking at this and you're thinking about how awful what John Gruden said was and that he lost his job, and rightly so, know that there is the way organizations – there are going to be so many people on that staff that were brought in just because they were Gruden people, and I'm talking all the way down to quality control coaches, that's how some people get their starts, which gets them from Stefanski being an assistant to the coach all the way to a head coach in the NFL. There are so many people are going to be – in I would think in a lot of cases, innocent casualties to somebody at that top of the mountain having a cataclysmic situation, because that's just the way the NFL works. And a new staff's going to come in and they're going to get cleaned out, and it'll probably be harder, whereas before, you're a Gruden guy, that's going to be able to get you around a lot of, get you into teams and get you around the league. That might be very, very difficult now.
It's a good point. Yeah. The reach of this is
a lot of people will be affected that are innocent to the crime that has caused this punishment. Yeah.
No, it's a very valid point. Those are your OBM Hot Topics. Ohio Business Machine, preferred comp provider, your Cleveland Browns. They have all the X's and O's for your office. Call 216-485-2000. Visit ohiobusinessmachines.com. Fun program for you today. A little bit of better or worse coming up in the second hour of the program. Sir Andrew will join us as well. You'll hear Rich Eisen on our quarterback, Baker Mayfield. Pretty loaded up on a nice little Tuesday. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau Bishop here for Raising Cane's. Don't call a timeout. Make the right play. Score some hand-battered chicken fingers on the drive with Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. Bring home a box combo, four-hand battered, cooked-to-order chicken fingers, crispy crinkle-cut fries, fresh coleslaw, buttery Texas toast, and Raising Cane's secret sauce. Top it all off with delicious iced tea or fresh squeezed lemonade. Game day never tasted so good. And a proud sponsor of Ohio State Athletics. Go Bucks. Some news this morning out of the National Football League that the NFL is looking to play in 3 cities in Germany, Munich, Dusseldorf. There was one more on there as well. Frankfurt, maybe? I'm not sure. But looking to play some games in Europe. Do you think that we will ever see a time where the NFL Europe model or some form of that returns?
You would think that it would, right? As another kind of a minor league development. That's not a demerit. I never started to try to talk.
If mine was.
No, you started to try to talk. You started to talk and then realized it was off. I never started to talk. I tested the waters.
We'll have to go to Judge Gibby. He's the one who put me on the trial.
He knows.
We'll have to play it back, Gibby.
I'll take
have
it.
to go to the judge.
Your demerits don't hurt me.
I'll keep you posted.
We'll have to do an audio investigation.
What I did was very wise there. We were talking in the break. The mic was off. And
you
before
do have
I
a great
spoke.
point that, like, if not for the click.
Right, you'd have no idea.
You know.
Because I didn't even speak or anything. I just gave a little touch, and then there was there, you know.
Yeah.
Someday I do feel like as this show, you know, continues to grow its audience and people are in the club and everybody's loving it, that I do feel like at some point we will graduate to the real on-off cough light situation. Like that is
not as long as Gibby's building studios.
That's my belief. That's my belief.
This is how Gibby likes his studios. He built everything, every detail he approved.
We have a chance to talk with, you know, some of the higher ups in the organization coming up. You better believe that's gonna be one of the topics, brother.
NFL Europe. Germany loved it. Germany loves the sport. There's chance for growth here. You're never going to be able to put a team there. It's just too far. The flight's too far. Even with 2 in London, there's just no way you could ever do it.
Yes.
But it is an untapped market where there's great passion for it. And I do wonder if is there a way that you could have an 8-team league in Europe that's a practice squad developmental league?
Yeah, and I think that's what you need, right? Because clearly there's been value. Now the XFL is going to try to be that. But is there the consumption? Is there the thirst for that kind of football in America? Because there was value in the AAF, right? You've gotten guys from that into the league. You've gotten guys from the failed XFL into the league. But they weren't sustainable here. So the idea would be to find where can we have a sustainable developmental program, and I think you could be right that Europe could be the issue. Could be the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. And Germany with all the military bases there, and it's just a sport that they've taken to. So to me, I think you could have 4 teams in Germany, 3 in England, 2 in England, maybe 1 in Ireland. I mean, I think that there's a way to do it. I mean, Ireland hosts the Notre Dame every other year, and they seem to get a huge turnout for that. To me, that would seem to be. Do you guys remember the NFL Europe teams? I remember the London Monarchs, the Frankfurt Galaxy,
Dragons.
Barcelona Dragons.
That was it.
That's about it.
That's
I can't think if I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I do think that there is a thirst for it, and I think maybe that would be a way to do it. And then you coincide that with, you're going to play a game in Germany every year, play 2 games in London every year, and then a game. I know they want to go to Mexico City. We've heard about Brazil is a market that they feel is a little bit untapped. So there could be some expansion down in that area as well. Gibby wants us through 5 weeks, our top 3 MVP candidates through 5 weeks.
Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson.
Josh Allen. No Kyler, huh?
Oh, sure. Kyler. Lamar out.
Yeah. Of the 3 of those, the latter 2, if you go Kyler, Herbert, Allen, I think Allen's the winner right now. If you go those 3, the other 2 seem more sustainable than Kyler just because of Kyler's stature. and he just hasn't been able to come out of seasons unscathed.
And they were shut down pretty good last week.
Yeah.
By a 49ers team that was not great on offense.
No. I just think, again, I don't know. Lance has got a cannon, obviously, and maybe he can teach that accuracy and touch and all that stuff. But Justin Fields has that right now. Like, I just wanted him there so badly. I just wanted Fields in San Francisco so badly. Like, that's the spot.
You wonder.
The Browns High School. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you wonder long term, will we look back at that as a big miss? But if they can develop him, his size is clearly something that is very desirable, Trey Lance.
Is he that much bigger than Fields?
I think so. I'll look it up. I could be totally wrong.
Fields 6'2", 220.
I think Trey, in my mind, Trey Lance is 6'4", 6'5", but I could be totally. Yeah, he's 6'5".
He could be
225.
So he's taller.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The Browns High School football game of the week is back, and it's presented by Ohio Cat in association with MedLiminal. Fans can vote now to determine this week's game on ClevelandBrowns.com and Browns on Twitter, @Browns on Twitter. Polls close Thursday at noon. This week's candidates are Chardon against South, Riverside versus Kenston, Hoover versus Green, and Garfield versus Brookfield on that game. The winning team from that selected game of the week receives $2,500 for their high school football program. Do vote today. Sir Andrew Gribble will join us coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Imagine kicking back in the evening in your very own hot tub. Now imagine actually being able to afford one. Northeast Factory Direct. Well, they buy hot tubs by the truckload. You get a 6-person hot tub with a lounger and the lights. You can still afford your summer activities. You think about owning a hot tub would be a pain. Not at Northeast Factory Direct. They come with the exclusive hardtop cover. You don't have to worry about safety or convenience. Plus, you're going to get a lifetime warranty on that cover. If you're looking for a way to stay active, they have the amazing swim spas. It's a hot tub, but you can adjust the jets. It gives you a gentle current. You can swim into it and use them year-round. See for yourself. West 140th Street in Cleveland, Lakewood Boulevard in Euclid, or Freeway Drive in Macedonia. Or shop them online anytime at northeastfactorydirect.com. And with that, we head on the hotline for a visit with our good buddy, Brown Senior Staff Writer Sir Andrew Gribble, joining us. Your emotions coming out of Sunday are what? That game had it all.
Yeah, it did. It was, first off, it was an incredibly entertaining game to watch, and I think that it was a delight for, 30 other fan bases in the NFL to get to just watch that and not have a vested interest in who actually came out on top. But it's a tough one to stomach at the end because I think you competed and played well, and for a lot of that game were better than the Chargers. But ultimately in the end, just not enough plays were made in the fourth quarter. And I think what makes it tough is that the ending reminded you a lot of the Week 1 game against the Chiefs, where you played a similar game, but ultimately came up short in the end. So these are games that'll make the team better in the end, but it's just tough to go through in the moment. But there is a lot to feel good about offensively because the team kind of woke up after a Week 4 performance that left a lot of people wondering about the offense. So this team has what it takes. They just got to put it all together and keep doing it against the top competition in the NFL.
And you're right. It kind of leaves you with that same taste. So my question is, what is it? What is it that this team needs to do? When it's a team that is not on the Browns level, you know they're going to come through. And they have done that, I think, basically throughout the entire Kevin Stefanski tenure. But it's these games, the Monday Nighter against Baltimore, the playoff game in Kansas City, Week 1 Kansas City, this game against the Chargers, where the Browns have just been, for large stretches of the game, the better team and not been able to get it done. So what is that next step? It's one thing to say they just have to do it, but how does that get accomplished?
Yeah, it's tough because I think that there's a lot of examples where you got to do – there's been so many situations where the Browns have put themselves in such good position that they haven't had to have these situations. And so it's about, like, tapping in and executing what you do well in those moments. And I think, to me, it's to not lose sight of the identity of this team. I think you can still, when you're down a little bit and trying to get back in the game, I think you can still run the ball and be effective that way. And when you're leading and trying to hold on to the lead, this team can still be aggressive and still pass the ball. And they've shown the tendency to do that, just hasn't been executed. I think both games you've had plays drawn up, shot plays in these situations, in kind of clock running situations where you're catching the defense off guard. And they just haven't been executed. I think that this past game, obviously, you saw Rashard and Donovan Peoples-Jones get really disrupted, bumped off their routes questionably by the Chargers in that situation. And then, obviously, the previous week, the deep shot to Odell that just wasn't connected. So I think it's just about executing these plays and sticking true to the identity, which the identity of this offense, I think, is obviously run heavy, but it's keeping the defense off guard with not knowing what's coming. And I think that's the case where maybe the defense has known or has seen what's coming and been able to stop it so far when the Browns have been in these situations.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 500 yards of offense, 40 points scored, no turnovers, first team to ever lose when you check all of those boxes. Graves, I think one thing that's been kind of lost this week is just how much this defense was ravaged by injury. Certainly we pay attention to it. I know you do as well. But you were looking around there at the end of the game on Sunday and going, man, now who's out there at corner? Obviously Troy Hill we know, but I mean that kind of accentuates just how desperate this defense was by the time that game ended on Sunday. When you look at what happened and where you go from here, what do you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's just not a team you want to be down any of your defensive players against. I mean, the Chargers are going to test you in a lot of different ways, and you enter the game without two of your key starters with Jadeveon Clowney and Greg Newsome, and then it just keeps getting worse and worse as the game goes on. So I think that Greedy Williams, I thought, played his butt off in that game, and really A.J. Green stepped up as well. You're just in a tough situation when you keep seeing guys go into the blue tent, and you have to adjust. I think we saw the versatility factor come out there. I think we saw M.J. Stewart, who also left with an injury and is now an injured reserve. He had to move around, play a little bit of corner, play a little bit of safety, and Troy Hill was playing on the outside instead of the inside. So this depth was tested as much as it can possibly be in a game, and you just hate to see that in a game that was such a big one, against a great offense where, the Chargers have been a team that historically has been dealing with tons of injuries, and this is the first time you get to see them with a healthy Bosa, a healthy Derwin James, everyone, all those pieces lined up, and the Browns were just a little bit shorthanded, especially on the offensive line and on defense.
Yeah, they weren't. Ultimately, they were not able, as you said, to get the win. An incredible performance, though, offensively. 42 points, 512 yards, almost 8 yards per play, which is, frankly, those are stunning numbers. And yet the narrative, it seems, is that our quarterback wasn't good. I mean, the guy was great, almost 70% completions, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. We haven't turned the ball over in 3 straight games, which I don't think people have really noticed, but 3 straight clean sheets, that's good football. I mean, this offense, when it plays like that, what we haven't seen, though, Gribbs, would you agree, is a full 60 with all 3 phases together. If we do that, I think we should be able to really win some games in just beat-down fashion.
I think that's and I think a lot of NFL teams are searching for that full 60 with all 3 phases, and most of the time you're not going to get it. And I think it's finding ways to win when those things aren't clicking, and I think the Browns have done that. They've won more than they've lost this season so far. But you're right. I thought the passing game, especially, it wasn't just more efficient, which it clearly was, but I thought it was better at getting some of the wide receivers more involved. You saw a career best game for Donovan Peoples-Jones. Rashard Higgins got involved. I just thought it was better in that way, and I think getting the Chief involved the way he was, I mean, that's just such a weapon, and that's the kind of game you've always been hoping to see out of David Njoku, and I think he's been very, very good this year, and I think that he is a legitimate weapon for this offense, and I think what we've seen from this passing attack, and I've said this so many times, but the passing attack is at its best when Baker Mayfield is distributing it to about 8 or 9 people in a game, and I think a lot of those passes don't need to be very far because this is a talented team of playmakers. Get the ball in their hands, get it out fast, especially when you have some deficiencies at tackle right now. I had no problem with the way the Browns were passing the ball. I thought it was effective. I thought Baker was very accurate in this game, and I think that this was the kind of Baker Mayfield effort you've grown accustomed to. And I think some of this talk about him has been kind of silly, especially when you look at the way he was playing week 1 and the way he played in this game. I mean, this season isn't even close to half over, and we've kind of been riding the roller coaster here. But I think Baker has definitely been more good than he has been struggling this year so far.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you mentioned the Chief, 260 yards. He's now your leading receiver by over 100 yards on the season. In fact, he had more receiving yards in this game at 149 than anybody else has had on the season other than Kareem Hunt, who has exactly 149. I feel like he is a weapon. I feel like he is somebody, and we've talked a lot about, the big decisions that have to come. He's somebody that I think we need to keep here long term. He wants to be here. I think that this is an extension that maybe could get done in the season and would be a good thing because I'd argue right now he's our biggest individual weapon in the passing game because he's a mismatch regardless of who's on him.
Oh, and I think he's a mismatch in the sense that it's just a different ball game out there with him out there when he's not your only tight end. I think that's the key. I mean, when you have him and Austin Hooper out there, that's just a nightmare for opposing defenses to have to track down those guys. And I think the improvement, the maturity has been so significant for David Njoku and over the past couple of years. And I think just embracing his role in this offense and understanding where he can make the biggest impact. I think that this is the best usage I've seen out of David Njoku so far in his career. It's kind of picking the spots where he can make these big plays, maybe not the heavy volume usage we saw early in his career where it didn't look as smooth. I think this is the perfect situation for him right now. And you can't expect this kind of production game in, game out, but weapon Baker clearly has great chemistry with, throwing the ball to, trust him in kind of 50-50 situations. And I think, especially, I think this is a player that I would keep an eye on moving forward with some of these bigger matchups coming up too.
Gribbs, we'll get you out of here on this one. Cardinals here on Sunday, kind of exactly what the doctor ordered. The best way to take the bad taste out of your mouth in the loss to the Chargers is to play another really good team, and you'll get an opportunity on Sunday. What jumps out to you with the Cardinals in the matchup?
I think that clearly they're doing something right. They're undefeated at this point in the season. It's not a fluke, and I think for them that they're obviously great offensively, but they've been so much more improved defensively, and that's what makes them kind of a balanced team that is very dangerous. And I think the big focus for me is all of their wide receivers, they're loaded at that position versus the secondary for the Browns right now that has a lot of question marks because of injuries. That's going to be kind of a storyline I'll be focused on this week just because you hope to have as full of a group as possible. And I think it was for that group, you saw all the injuries in the game Sunday. Only one of those guys goes on IR in MJ Stewart. So clearly it's going to be a day-by-day thing with getting those guys back. So hopefully have the full group as much as you can against this Cardinals receiving corps because they're really good. Might be one of the best the Browns face all season.
Yeah, certainly does. Very diversified. Thanks for your time, buddy. Appreciate you.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
All right, that's senior staff writer, great friend of the program, Sir Andrew Gribble. Yeah, I know we'll turn the page to the Cardinals tomorrow. How many opportunities have you had to see them play this year?
I've seen a lot of highlights of them, and I mean, listen,
Yeah.
I will not forget what I saw back in 2018 when we went down, or 2019, I'm sorry, when we went down there to Arizona. Kyler's averaging 300 yards passing and 2 touchdowns per game. He's running for, another 22 yards and almost a touchdown per game. They've got a good offense that's splitting it up between Connor and Edmonds. And what I found is they're just explosive. They can hit big plays, whether it's they've got 4 receivers who have more yards than
Rondale
anybody
Moore,
on
too.
our team receiving this year. 4 of them.
Yep.
Hopkins,
Yep.
312, Kirk, 283, Rondale Moore, 270, and A.J. Green, 261. They've all caught touchdowns. They've got, 9 of their touchdowns to the receiver position. Now, they did lose Max Williams, the tight end, this past week. So Demetrius Harris, our old friend, I don't know if he's still there or not, but I know he's appeared in at least one game for them. He could end up being the tight end. But they're a dynamic offense, and we are going to have our hands full because Kyler is a guy that can make every throw. He can also extend every play. And they've got receivers where if we're down, we don't know the status of Greg Newsome yet. We don't know the status of Denzel Ward yet. We don't know the status of Greedy Williams yet. We know that MJ Stewart's out. Right. So, you're talking about potentially having Troy Hill.
Fell into the depths.
You'd have Troy Hill, A.J. Green, and then practice squad guys if those 3 are all out, which hopefully they will not be because you're going to need them. Yeah. You're going to need 4. They're going to have all 4 of those guys on the field they play more 4 receiver than anybody in the league. It's a game where
I hope that we can be healthy because in a way I think we're drafted to play them both offensively and defensively. I think when you think about what Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is, the way we use Ronnie and Grant, that is to help limit somewhat of Kyler's abilities. We have the amount of corners that we have. Obviously, MJ Stewart's not going to be there, but if the other 3 are there, then you have corners to match up with their guys on the outside that should be able to go stride for stride with them. And then flip it the other way, and you think about what we can do in the ground game, do they have an ability to stop that? And my hunch is they don't. So if healthy, we have kind of an antidote. And I do think I agree with my own statement, quite frankly. I think it's a perfect matchup. I think it's a good matchup for us on Sunday. And I know it's a big-time challenge, but the quickest way to put that thing behind you is to play a really good team at home and to take care of business. And I'm just hopeful we get to that game relatively healthy.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we get to that game healthy and we are able to compete. And you're right that, we have the guys, but they're going to stress based on what they saw last week. They are going to run a lot of multiple vertical routes trying to stress our safeties and corners into miscommunication and looking for those home runs. So that has got to be buttoned up this week.
Yep. Yeah, it does. It's a fun one. It certainly is a fun one. All right, we'll get some analysis from our buddy Jake Burns coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. right, second hour here on a Tuesday on Cleveland Browns Daily. I want to tell you about my friends at EOX Vantage. They have that local presence and a global footprint, trusted by some of the world's biggest brands. This is a testimonial from EOX Vantage client Tom Darty, the NIP Group. He said, quote, I have a saying about working with EOX Vantage, if you dream it, they can build it. We generate lots of ideas for them to carry out. They've implemented everything we've come up with. We brainstorm ways to innovate and improve our company. We use EOX Vantage for the infrastructure, coding, programming capabilities, technological expertise, and all of that experience they have working with the global brands. We are absolutely thrilled with our partnership. Learn more about EOX Vantage by visiting www.eoxvantage.com or call 216-298-1616. Again, that's 216-298-1616. And with that, we head out on the hotline. It's been a while since we've talked to our good buddy Jake Burns, film analyst for the Orange and Browns Report. My friend, thank you so much for taking the time. Let's just start with this game on Sunday. When you love breaking down film the way that you do, and you have a game that has what this one had on Sunday, what are you most curious to check out first in your breakdowns?
It's a good question. I would say what went wrong in the second half of the Browns defense. You know, in the first half, they held the Chargers to 165 yards and 13 points. So you're really trying to pinpoint the best you can where things went wrong, right? Because offensively, there's a ton of fun stuff to look at. They put up 42 points. They run for 200 and, you know, they run for 220 or so, and they throw for 300. They have 200 yards after catch. So that's guys making plays in space. So that stuff's fun. I mean, the offense is great to look at. And listen, they played really, really well up front. They protected Baker Mayfield with a backup left tackle. And, you know, they lost Jack Conklin for a period of time there, too. They protected so well. So it was just a tale of two halves. The offense was pretty good throughout, but the defense in the second half floundered. So you're doing what everybody's doing watching the game live and trying to piece together the why that sort of thing happens. And that's kind of every game I go into, there's usually a why about the game, right? There's something that the Browns either did well or didn't do well, and you try to decipher the why that went that way. So that part is like the most fun part of the whole thing to me is pinpointing the why each week in and week out.
All right, let's start with the offense in this game. Why was this Browns offense so successful, and what did you like that you saw?
Well, like I said a minute ago, they protected so well, and not just the five guys up front who were stellar, but they were so creative. Kevin Stefanski, and I know the end of the game didn't go the way everybody wanted it to, but you really got to look at the little quirks about a game plan. And, you know, using bunched alignments to let your wide receiver get a chip on a defensive end like Joey Bosa before he goes out on a snap, or using those delayed chip plays where you either send a running back to a defensive end and get a piece of him before you go out, or, you know, a tight end's doing the same thing from an inline position to create delayed and stacked routes that time up together really well. So I thought that they were extremely prepared for this game offensively. They were diverse as usual in the run game with a mixture of those wide zone and inside zone schemes we talk about all the time here, and then the gap schemes where they're pulling either Batonio or they're pulling Treader. They were really good. They were great up front. They controlled the line of scrimmage, guys. You don't run the way they do for the yardage they did without being able to control the point of attack. It was a nice view after last week. I thought they struggled. The course of the last 2 weeks, really, they weren't their usual selves, but I thought they got back to it. And then Nick and Kareem just create so many yards over expected by making people miss in the phone booth, right? Where it's like he's bottled up. Nope, okay, that little 1-2 plant or that little turn of power at the top of a run that ends up pushing a defender off. It's I've talked about this all the time. We kind of get caught up in the details of some of these tough games, and there have been two really tough losses. It's easy, though, when we look at all the other factors to forget how great Nick and Kareem are and how special they are, and the fact that, you know, we could live the rest of our lives and not see a running back tandem as talented as these two guys in Cleveland. They are genuinely special at creating things when there is nothing there. And that should not be taken for granted as you go through this process where the Browns have turned into a good football team. They're special. They blocked well. Kevin had a really nice game plan throughout. I know things fell apart at the end, and there's smarter people out there talking about those decisions than me. But, you know, I thought as far as like looking at the game plan and what they did to alleviate their left tackle, Blake Hansen, the tough position, and give Baker some pretty clean pockets to throw throughout the game. He was sacked once on a little mistake from David Njoku. He didn't get his eyes turned in time. And that's it. He was not pressured much throughout this game. I think he only threw 5 or 6 balls under pressure in the entire game. And that speaks to your coaching staff between Callahan and Van Pelt and all of them putting together just a fantastic game plan for that.
Yeah, I don't know if the league will see a pair as good as Kareem and Nick again at the same time in their prime the way that those two are. So it's something we talk about all the time. I don't know if there's ever been a better duo in the history of the league, and there's a long history there to draw from. In terms of, as you mentioned, down the stretch, and when you play these great teams, and I think the Chargers are a good to great team, when you play teams like this, it's going to come down to a couple of plays, a couple of drives. What did you see on the 3-minute drive? What did you see on the 90-second drive to end the game? Was there stuff out there that you left on the field? How do you? And obviously, this is now Tuesday afternoon quarterbacking. But what does the film tell you?
It's a good question there too. I think the second down throw gets a lot of attention. It was 2nd and 10, and they ran a concept with Donovan Peoples-Jones on a wheel route on the right side, and then they had a little combo vertical and a square in, or what's called a China route from Odell on the left side. So there were options to be taken. I mean, he could have pulled the trigger on the wheel up the right side. Did not
a penalty
did not
there,
throw
I
that,
thought.
and that's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean if I cut you off there.
No, I cut you off. I apologize for that. I was saying I thought there was a penalty there. Donovan Peoples-Jones got shoved practically out of bounds about 9 yards down the field when the corner bit on the out.
He did, and Baker saw that shove and came off of it, which is okay. He came back left, and he decided he could have either thrown the ball to Odell, which would have been fine, but he also saw Rashard Higgins with a nice step up the hash. I think that if you get Baker to talk about that throw, he might admit that maybe he wanted to put a bit more loft under it, give him a chance to run under it, or draw a penalty. He put it on a line. Again, not the end of the world decision. I thought he tried to back shoulder it a little bit, and I thought Rashard Higgins got held. It's a subjective game, and the officials have the ultimate say on that. But you'd like to have that play back because there were some options to take there, and I didn't think Baker took the wrong one necessarily because Higgins was open, and it was the right read. It's just I think Baker would tell you that I need to put some air under that ball to let him run under it when there's nobody downfield to cover him. So that play was fine. It was schemed up well, and then the third down draw. I thought personally maybe they were playing for 4 downs there because it's starting to get real chaotic, and the Chargers have scored 3 straight touchdowns, and maybe you just take your chances, go for it, and then if they score, you get it right back with maybe 2 minutes and some change left and all your timeouts still at hand. So I don't know. There's a lot of things like clock management things. They don't pay me money to talk about clock management, but there's, I think Kevin has admitted there's some things he'd like to have back. I thought they were fine on the second down play call. I really thought it was a good call, and they had some opportunities there. So, again, we're talking about some of the offensive frustrations after 500 yards and all that stuff.
Right.
42 points.
42
They're
points.
doing it. They're doing enough good things. They just got to capitalize, and I'm telling you, they'd be scoring 40 to 50 a game. I mean, there's literally points to be had everywhere, guys.
There are, and it feels like our two, breakout offensive performance, I'll call it, have been the games against Mahomes and Herbert, where they're going to score points too, and they did. Mm-hmm. 2 things though, 2 plays in particular, the busted coverages, those hurt, and you can't have that. And I know we're shuffling guys in that secondary, and A.J. Green, for example, probably hasn't been communicating much, with Delpit and John Johnson, and they haven't, repped that as much as maybe you would have liked them to be able to. But what did you see on those 2 busts, and how do you get that cleaned up? Because you have to imagine, once that's put on tape, the Cardinals are going to run a lot of similar concepts out there to try to see if they can get a little bit of a bust. And I think they saw last week in Minnesota that while Greedy made a great play and sloughed off, that perhaps there was a miscommunication even on that deep ball to Adam Thielen.
Yeah, this is the concerning part, right? Because I would imagine if you get into Joe Wood's defensive meetings, the first thing he talks about is eliminating big plays. They have been a defense that filters plays underneath, eliminates what's called explosive plays, and they've done a great job with it. And to me, this was the game, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here. I cannot think of a game in the Joe Woods era where they have been burnt for deep touchdowns with nobody even in the vicinity. Now, the Tyreek Hill touchdown week 1 was just a fluky out-of-the-pocket flip downfield, and that was a play where the guy was in the right position. But these were way out of the ordinary. I've never seen them have these issues before. Not just 1, not just 2, but really there were 3 if you include the first touchdown where nobody was in the curl flat to cover the leak tight end that runs up the right sideline and into the end zone. So I'm not sure. I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think John Johnson wearing the green dot is new. That's a new wrinkle this week. And again, he's done it before, But could there have been some communication things there as a new approach happens? Maybe. That's total conjecture from me. I don't know. You'll talk to people this week who can tell you about some things, but there's no doubt Kevin has confirmed that there was miscommunication happening, and we have not seen that through 4 weeks. So it was strange. The first one, like I said, both Mack Wilson and Harrison run to cover the middle cross, and nobody pays attention to the leak tight end, so there's no curl flat defender. The second touchdown, which came in the second quarter, the 72-yarder, is just a post with a sail route. So think of a post route up the near hash with an out route at 10 yards, and it looks like quarters to me. They play quarters a ton. I noted it in my all 22 that I give you guys all the data. I tell you how many times they're playing coverages. They play quarters a ton, and they've been pretty good in quarters.
Anybody in the NFL.
4.
Yep.
Exactly, and it's like for some reason Grant Delpit is eyeing number 2's sail route and doesn't pay any attention to the post over top. And from every indication I have, it looks like AJ Green is watching, expecting that inside help. So I'm not sure there. Again, I'm not in Joe Woods' coaching meetings and film reviews, and there could be something we're all missing. Pro Football Focus gave that play to Grant. I don't know. It just was Grant had no idea. He had no inclination to watch number 1 on the post outside of him. So that's a huge bust. And then we saw the throwback play. They went to 3-by-1. The Browns usually lock up their backside corner in 3-by-1. And Grant Delpit, sorry, not Grant Delpit, apologize, take that back. Greedy Williams is running with the dig route. And what happens is Ronnie Harrison, again, it looked like corners to me, and Ronnie bit up on the dig route and didn't watch number 2 to his left side running a post, sort of an over route post throwback, because what happened is Herbert faked and kind of slid out of the pocket reset, and threw it back across the field. And I just don't think Ronnie even saw him. And if you watch the end of the play, John Johnson's got the arms up looking at him. And usually that will tell you which player's wrong. The guys all kind of stare at him. So I don't know. It's just like all I know is this guy. I try to lay it out for you as best I can based on what I know. I'm not looking at a call sheet. But these miscommunications are really rare. They have not had this many. You can pick apart Joe Woods' defense however you feel suited, but these type of big play miscommunications are very rare. And when you play the Herberts, the Mahomes, the Allens, who are in the Lamars, who are playing well, you can't give them 21, 23 easy points, because that's how you lose historic games where you score 40 and don't turn it over, because you give up those huge plays. So I don't expect this to be a regular thing, guys. I think they'll get it ironed out, but boy, I'm sure they're all so frustrated about leaving this game out in L.A. because those plays were a big part of it.
Right. You can't give layups. You can't give, in those two, the Parham one I think was 19 yards, 41 yards to Williams. That's 60, and then the other one was 71. So that's 130-something yards for free that were given, and all three ended up in touchdowns in a game that was very high scoring. You pointed out correctly, the Browns play quarters 30% of the time. This is from Pro Football Focus PFF Ultimate. That's the highest in the league. They play cover 3, 35.2, and the combined 65%, definitely the highest in the league in those two coverages, which is one of the things the Browns do to make sure they limit those big plays. And I think what's interesting, and you mentioned, sometimes things that look like quarters can actually be a cover 3 where they let one guy come down and kind of rob, and perhaps that's what Delpit was doing, and it was AJ who needed to carry the vertical route. These are the things that we just don't know, and these are the things, though, that the Browns do need to get sorted out. If there was one thing that would have been able to alleviate that, and you wonder, with Clowney out, the pressure rate was down a little bit this week, although Tack still had some nice pressures. Malik McDowell did. Miles gets held every play, which is it's craziness that he doesn't get the flags that he deserves. On that touchdown to Eckler, I thought he was blatantly grabbed right in front of the official, and no calls made. That was a 2nd and 17, by the way. But what did you see defensively up front where what did we do well maybe the 2 weeks prior that we were not able to do? Is it just as simple as winning?
It is. A little bit of it is. I thought that I thought you illuminated it pretty well there, Nathan, where you kind of talked about they did get some pressure. Now, I don't know that Joe will ever uptick the blitzing. They technically registered 9 blitzes in this game of 68 plays, and that's the 13-ish% they normally sit between 7 to 10. A couple of them were, I think, maybe like we call those green dog blitzes, where somebody will step up, and then if their man is in pass protection, such as a tight end, he'll blitz late. Think of what Denzel did last week for a couple big plays there in the pass rush. So I think I got him at 7, and on those 7 dropbacks, Herbert was 2 of 7 for 25 yards. So when they did blitz and bring crazy pressure like they do, they were effective. I'm not calling for them to uptick it because they still are at the top of the NFL in pass rush win rate. They've been dominant. I just think that the coverage mistakes allowed them to really decipher some throws quickly. And again, Herbert is good. He's good. You cannot give him 4 plays where all 4 touchdowns are wide open in terms of nobody's within 5 yards of them. That's all 4, not the 3 we just talked about, all 4 because it's a screen. So that you're making that too easy. And I think that, I thought they did a pretty good job with Herbert outside of the bust plays. And really you need your luck to work out a little better on 4th downs. You give up 3 of 4 4th downs. One of them you get tacked on because of a penalty. So, I didn't watch this game, guys, and think like the pass rush wasn't winning. I thought they were doing fine. Miles got 5, Malik got a couple, Malik Jackson, Malik McDowell had a sack. They were doing their usual twist exchanges, the ETX stunts and the TX stunts where you're twisting your ends and your tackles and trying to create pass rush lanes. I thought they were fine. I just thought that the Chargers had a nice game plan to get the ball out. And, they targeted like Mike Williams 19 times. Like their plan was pretty clear. We do not want Herbert holding on to the ball whatsoever. So they took some risky throws. They took some tight window throws, and they missed a lot. I mean, he wasn't perfect in this game in terms of sheer numbers. I think Herbert was something like 26 of 43. That's not bad, holding him to that completion percentage. You just got to eliminate the explosives. You take out those 100 yards you talked about, Nathan, and maybe they do score on those drives. Who knows? But you just can't do that because that's 150 yards of easy throws, and then he's in the 250 range, and you probably do hold him to something like duplicating the first half, and it's a 26 score, 42-26 final or something like that. So it's easy to get crazy and overreact and be angry. I get it. It was a game everybody wanted, right? But in the end of the day, I don't think you're going to see many weeks with that many coverage busts. I trust these guys to rectify it, get it figured out because they know who's coming in this week. And it's just not a part of their DNA. They're not a risk-taking defense like the Ravens and some of those others who leave guys on islands. That's just not who they are. So I do think you'll get it figured out here, and I have trust that those things won't be a recurring problem.
Jake, we love talking to you, man.
Yes.
Thanks for your time. Thank you so much for some time today.
Oh, guys, anytime. My pleasure.
All right, that's our good buddy Jake Burns, film analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Lots of good facts there from
relax.
Jake.
That's what we said. There's a lot there. Yeah. This is an atypical the busts. We'll be just fine.
Yeah, no. Injuries during childbirth require experienced counsel. Call the lawyers at Elk & Elk for clear answers to what happened during your child's birth. Elk & Elk is a proud partner of your Cleveland Browns. Call 1-800-ELK, Ohio today. Rich Eisen's thoughts on our quarterback coming up next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back into Cleveland Browns Daily. Rich Eisen, typically with a far more measured approach to his radio duties and analysis. Here is Rich on Baker from his show, The Rich Eisen Show. Let's have a listen.
You're without and then the quarterback who throws for 300 yards when the other guy almost throws for 400 yards and keeps you in the game, and you're going back and forth one after the other. We're talking about how great that quarterback is, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, he threw for 300 yards. Top two receivers are out. How come Baker just gets crap? What is it? I don't get it.
I don't know.
I don't get it. And so I'll ask you. You're there in Cleveland, Justin. Like, what, you want Charlie Fry back? You know what I mean? Like, honestly, do you want the old days back? Because this is a hell of a lot better than anything remotely close to what you had prior to Baker Mayfield. I mean, like, what do you want? You know, I mean, you just make a defensive stop every now and then, and you know, that this is one of those games where if the defense actually was able to hold Justin Herbert down and not let Mike Williams behind them and all of that business, then you win this game, right? And you should have beaten the Chiefs. I don't know, man. I don't place it all on Baker's shoulders the way everyone else does.
I just, you know,
right?
It's definitely all I see on social media. It's always it's always against Baker, and it's just, you know, you start letting it get to you as a fan. Like, is it Baker's fault?
I don't know.
Need something?
All I know is I take Baker on the Jets. I take him. Thanks for the call. I take him. I know what he is. Okay, I know what he is. And what he is a winning quarterback in the NFL. Yeah. He has yet to just do what I guess Herbert did, right?
Well, he's not asked to win games. There's a huge difference.
Well, yesterday they needed to get into position for a touchdown, right? I mean, and just.
But they were still running the football primarily. Like if you look at the big plays, you look at the number and see, oh, he had a 70-yard pass. Well, he had a 12-yard pass, and then Njoku did the rest. So he's not asked to, go out and take over games and kind of dominate.
Yeah, but you know how many times a quarterback does that? Will throw a 10-yard pass, the receiver breaks 8 tackles, runs 60.
Yeah,
and
I know, but everyone gets
he ran 7, he threw a 7-yard bomb.
Hey,
that's not how that happens.
Let me just say this.
It's not like Josh Allen, though, throwing bombs.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Let me just say this. Baker gets a raw deal, man. He doesn't have Jarvis Landry. He doesn't have Odell Beckham. Any other quarterback in the league, Justin Herbert, if Herbert didn't have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, okay, right? If Brady didn't have Evans and Godwin.
Well, Brady did it forever with no wide receivers in New England.
I understand.
Yeah, but Tom Brady's an anomaly,
I'm just saying, right. If Brady didn't have, I'm just using these examples. If Mahomes didn't have Hill and Kelsey, if Allen didn't have Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders, or Diggs and Knox, who's really going on with a strong. If Murray didn't have Green and DeAndre, I can go on and on and on. And they won a football game, or they were in an immoral victory game, we'd be talking about, what a great game they got. Baker threw for 300 yards, and Odell's a shadow of his former self, and Jarvis Landry's out. It's Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashard Higgins, and David Njoku. Come on now. Honestly, you got the run game. Play defense. Play some defense. If they played some defense.
They should have,
Right? The only game where the defense has totally shown up was when they destroyed Justin Fields. Tighten it up on the other side of the ball and let Baker in the run game win games for you. How does that sound?
That's the thing, Rich. With those running backs,
what's going on?
He doesn't really have to.
So what I'm just saying is that's the formula for success. They haven't played any games in division yet. Everybody just take a beat. But Baker gets crap, man.
You know why it is? It's the commercials.
So what? They're actually very good.
They're great, but you know
hilarious.
But you guys know that
commercials. You know who I don't miss? I don't miss Aaron Rodgers' agent. from all those years. I don't miss that guy with his Bluetooth in his ear. I don't miss that.
You guys
Even
know how
Aaron
that works.
Rodgers, who's great at what he does, made some there was terrible commercials with that agent.
But that's how people are. When athletes get commercials, the first thing they say is if they don't do well, it's like, oh, well, you're doing these
But he
commercials.
does well. He won a playoff game last
but
year.
Rich,
He
you're
went into
rational.
Kansas City last year.
We're talking to rational people.
Well, that's
these
what
are
I'm
the
trying
things
to
that
do.
they say. They get on athletes when they do these commercials and they don't win every week. Like, that's just how people are.
I'm just saying, put the commercials aside. Okay, if there's any Browns fans that are sitting here this morning and saying Baker stinks, what do you want? What do you want? You want Case Keenum in there and see how that works? I'll tell you how it's going to work. Ask Minnesota Vikings fans how that works.
I liked your Charlie Fry reference.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Just ask Joe Thomas. Tell us any of the 90 million quarterbacks that you tried your best to protect, Joe, and ask anybody. It's so much better. The position's stabilized. And guess what? They're going to re-sign him. He's going to get re-signed. He might not make Allen money, but he's going to get re-signed. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's just because so many people in our business love making hay and bones on this kid's backwards cap stuff and not shaking, Hugh Jackson's hand. What do you want him to shake his hand after he gave Tyrod Taylor the gig and Tyrod Taylor had to get hurt before he got in there? And he's young. Give him a break. They're 3-2. Don't forget your own 5.
Back in 15.
I got my kid flying back from London. Another half of football in the first half where it was hot garbage. I'm waiting for it. Taking my lumps again. I'd love to be where you are, Cleveland fans.
You're up.
Strong from Rich. Very strong from Rich.
And not wrong. Strong and not wrong. I mean, I know that our expectations are very, very high here, as they should be. Again, I'll reiterate, Baker Mayfield has not thrown an interception 3 straight games. We've had a clean sheet on offense in 3 straight games. We just put up one of the most prolific offense performances in franchise history on the road against a team that people think can represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. Guess what? So can we. So can we. And I think that there are gradations that are subtle that people are not accepting of at the quarterback position. Yeah. There are few guys, and I think Herbert is looking to get into that group, that are just total elite, half potential, do-it-all quarterbacks. There are other guys that are very good quarterbacks that can absolutely win Super Bowls that are maybe not in that handful of the best of the best of the best, but that are still very, very, very good. And as they hone their craft over time, they get even better. Drew Brees, on his raw talent alone, was never going to be one of those top 5 guys, but played that way because he had a system that benefited him in New Orleans, and he honed his craft and became one of the most accurate and great anticipatory throwers of our time. Some of these things take time. Some of these guys that are 6'6", 6'5", Josh Allen, Herbert, can make every throw. Everything looks easy for them. That's something. Lamar's improved his passing. You got to give it to him. Baker Mayfield's a darn good quarterback. I don't think there's any question about that.
No, there's not. Good job out of you, Rich. Coming up next, a little better or worse. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850.
Or worse.
ESPN Cleveland. There's lots of bad advice out there about gambling, from secret methods to picking lottery numbers to betting big when you're on a roll. These myths can lose you money and get you in a lot of trouble. So before you wager, find out what's real and what isn't at keepitfunohio.com. Time for a little higher and lower, brought to you by our great friends at the Ohio Lottery. Hello, Gibby.
It's better or worse, and there's a third option.
It's
sweet spot. Gibby, is that possible to get that audio over the air from Jade?
I believe it's higher, lower, or just right.
It's better or worse or sweet spot. So,
There's
a song about it.
I don't think that audio has found its way to me.
There's a song about
it's
that
found
too?
its way. You're a G. Oh yeah, we've got a sweet spot one. Check your Twitter, check your social. You were tagged by Jade herself and Brown's Therapy. Gibby's a
there's
genie.
a song for that?
Yeah. Sweet spot.
Except the game is
Look
better
at
or
Gibby as a
worse,
genie.
or just right.
What is the game?
Higher or lower.
Oh,
or just
did
right.
you hear it? He said the game is better or worse. Did you hear it, Beau? What a moment.
Higher or lower?
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, he just said it. You said what the game is better or worse. I heard
Had
you.
a little slip up.
Quote Gibby, better or worse. Sure,
It's all
sure,
right.
sure.
The fact that we have access to Jade and her remarkable vocal stylings is stunning. She's doing jingles.
Amazing.
I mean, the Joe Thomas one's unreal. I know we were coming off a loss. We had the coach presser, so that makes that was tough on Monday. But that one is unreal.
Yes, I went back and forth. I did want to play that, but I feel like it should be a Victory Monday edition.
Yeah.
Where that gets played.
Well, at least when it debuts. Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's got to be on the debut. Yeah.
I mean,
It's fine.
I
We'll
agree.
save it for
Let's
Monday.
go.
Except, by the way, I don't think there's any Joe Thomas hour on Monday.
Why? Where's Hoff?
I think Hoff's taking a little time away.
why are you robbing us of joy?
I'm
I hate
not
to do
robbing
that
you
on a
of joy.
Tuesday.
But then he's coming to
For a
town.
week.
But then he's coming to town for the Browns and the Broncos.
Correct. We'll see him in studio the day after
On Friday.
Browns
That's a real treat.
Broncos.
Oh, one a week. I see.
Ah.
I gotcha.
Give it.
I
So,
see.
all right. The game is higher or lower. It's brought to you by our great friends at the Ohio Lottery today. Little sporting news. Vinny Iyer, who has appeared on our show, the NFL Power Rankings for Week 5, officially in the books here. Should they be higher? Closer to number 1, lower, number 32. Before we get into the teams, where would you guys rank the Las Vegas Raiders given all that has transpired in the last 24 hours?
So are the Browns better or are they worse? Okay, got it. Just using
Here's
your
what I
words.
would say about the Raiders situation.
Well, I
Let me
asked about
take
the
it a
Raiders,
step
Ian.
further. Let me take it a step further on the Raiders, though. Like, is there a worse job? You get to live in Vegas. I mean, the levels of this are a lot. Like, if they were still in Oakland when this happens and Gruden's the box office, can they even afford to deal with all of this? They have the influx of cash from Vegas, so now they can. But this is a roster that him and Mike Mayock built, and it's kind of a mess. Despite them being 3-2, it's kind of a messy roster. This is not an enviable place in terms of, now, you're always going to get free agents there because it's a great city, but they're in a tough spot right now, that franchise is.
Like right now, Vinny has them 16th. I find it hard to believe that they're the 16th best team in the NFL right now.
I think the wheels could come off.
Yeah, I don't like them better than Carolina right now. I even think even though Denver is not great, Denver could still beat them. They're having problems. Their offensive line right now is a big problem. And if you're playing a team that can get to the quarterback like Carolina could, Carolina would beat them. So I would say they are
Didn't
worse.
they just draft Alex Leatherwood, and everybody said he's not a tackle? And
Yeah,
then
they've
they
already
played him
moved
at
him to
tackle,
guard.
and then they moved him to guard?
Still not good.
Like they've done that stuff in the draft. Like Mayock was pretty good on the NFL Network in the draft, but it's like when it came time to the draft, they don't follow any of the rules that he had when he was at NFL Network.
Yeah, but he would do more like top fives at each position and things like that. It was never like, all right, who are you actually selecting right here? You know what I mean?
Like that Jonathan Abram guy who everybody said, well, the thing is, can he cover? Well, now they got him playing linebacker.
Yep. He was pretty impressive, though, at least early in his career. He looked like a difference maker.
Well, as a heat-seeking missile.
Yes, that's
but he
what
was
it is.
always a problem in coverage.
Sure.
It will be interesting to see what happens. Our game with them at First Energy Stadium is TBD still in December. 18th or 19th. Could be on a Saturday, NFL Network. You know, is that happening, or are they going to fall off the map now?
I don't think it will if they fall off the map. Yeah, I think that will.
And then this could go away, and it's back to a Sunday game, potentially.
Yep.
So, all right, let's get into it.
Higher or lower?
He has the Browns at number 9. Smart man. He says the Browns' defense had strange, massive breakdowns against the Chargers, taking away from their best balanced offensive performance of the season with Baker and the running backs. The injuries may have caught up to them there. Higher, lower, or just right? Zegura, lead us off.
Sweet spot. I think that's fair. I think where we're ranked is fair. I think you could maybe say that we're either 9 or 10 with Kansas City. They're 2 and 3, but they did beat us head to head. And right now on a neutral field, would we be favored over Kansas City? Maybe, depending on what has happened with the Kansas City defense being as bad as it has. But I think this is right, and I think that any of these 10 teams, I think the top 10. There is a gulf that is massive between the top 10 and then what comes after that at 11, 12, 13, 14 in this ranking especially. So I think that's fine. I think sweet spot.
Bishop.
Yeah, I think you're on the right path there. It's hard to argue that we're better than the Ravens. Obviously, he has the Chargers 7 and they just beat us. So you wouldn't have that. I believe he has us as the highest ranked 2-loss team. I believe that is correct too. He does. So that's a lot of respect there. Yeah, I think it's right where you ought to be. It's funny. We were talking to Jake, and you're thinking about it, and we talked about those 2 huge busts in coverage. You think about the blown calls, and it kind of, in a way, it's similar to the Kansas City game, although that game was the turnovers. You say all of these things happened to us, and we still could have won it. All of these things, not turnovers, but 2 huge busts in coverage. The penalties. Those things happen, and you still have a position to win it. You can almost win it despite in both of those cases, and in a weird way that ought to make you feel good as a Browns fan.
Yeah, now we just need to actually do it.
Next.
Yeah, no question.
Higher or lower?
All right, let's get into the rest of the NFL. Arizona, number 1, obviously at 5-0. The Rams, 2 teams, the top 2 teams in the NFL, reside in the NFC West, according to Mr. Iyer. Rams are 4-1. Higher, lower, or just right? Bishop.
Well, no, I don't think the 2 best teams are in the NFC West. I think the best team in the NFL is in the AFC East. I think it's Buffalo. I think they have everything that you want. I mean, I think they're housing people. That I can't explain what happened to them week 1 against Pittsburgh. It's a strange result, especially at home. But go look at the next 4 games they played. Dominant. Allen is playing with so much confidence. They can spin it. They can run it. He can run it. Defensively, they're playing well. To me, Buffalo is the best team in football right now. I would have them number 1, so the Rams would absolutely be lower or worse.
I agree completely. In fact, I think 1 would be the Bills, 2 is still the Bucs. I mean, I know they're decimated by injuries right now, but you don't want to deal with that offense with Tom Brady. Antonio Brown is looking elite.
I could be Chargers too, honestly.
They could be up there as well. I think that the Cardinals still at 5-0. Listen, the fact of the matter is, I don't believe, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe if the Bills or the Bucs were our opponent this weekend that we would be favored.
I think that's right.
And yet we are against Arizona.
Right.
Next.
Higher or lower?
The Bills 3, Tampa Bay 4, Green Bay 5 takes us to number 6. The Dallas Cowboys 4-1 and ranked 6th. Higher, lower, or just right, Zegura?
I like it. And frankly, right now, I maybe think they beat the Packers, so I could even see them being better. Their offense is elite. They've got a 2-headed backfield. Zeke is playing well. Tony Pollard's playing well. You've got CeeDee Lamb. You've got Amari Cooper. Dalton Schultz at tight end. They're going to get Gallup back. Dak's playing elite football. This is a great offense, and all of a sudden their defense, Diggs is right now, probably other than Miles would be the other favorite to be Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
He's been spectacular. Dan Quinn does know how to coach a good defense.
I was just going to say, he's a great coordinator.
They look legit.
Not a head coach,
they feel legit, and they're not just barely winning. They're whooping people.
They're better. Therefore, they should be ranked higher. Look, here's the deal. I think they're even better than the Rams. I mean, the Rams can't run it right now.
I agree.
The Cowboys can do both. They can do both, and they don't have Aaron Donald, and they don't have Jalen Ramsey. But this Diggs guy is playing out of his mind. The kid out of Alabama, Stephon Diggs' brother, is playing out of his mind. And they're getting a lot from Micah Parsons. They can fly around. Yeah, I think that they would be right. For me, it would be, if I'm ranking the NFC, I would go Bucks 1 and I would go Cowboys 2 right now. And I understand that's right now, but that's how I'd rank them right now.
Next.
Higher or lower?
All right, I'm going to skip over the Ravens because we've talked about this. You know, right now they're in first place in the division.
Yep.
Whether or not they've looked it, they're there. So work to do. Takes us to number 11, the Cincinnati Bengals, 3-2, coming off that overtime loss to the Packers. Higher, lower, or just right, Bishop?
This is just right. This is the sweet spot for them. And I'll tell you what, I think that they are, of the teams ranked below them, and I agree with you, 1 through 10, throw them in a thing and pick one out. They're all pretty similar. This is where the gulf is, between 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And of these teams, they are, even more so than Tennessee, a team that can beat you anyway. And they're better defensively than Tennessee. They got a little bit of juice defensively this year. But Burrow's coming along. Jamar Chase is a super-duper star. He's a super-duper star. You forget that they even have Boyd and Higgins, and they have them both. And they have Mixon, who's got some stuff going on for him. They are a scary team offensively to try to deal with week in and week out. They are right about where they need to be.
And that defense has played well.
They're frisky, man. They're frisky.
So we said
and the other teams down here, the traditionally good teams like the Seahawks and the 49ers, they just have huge issues with injuries. Huge.
Massive injuries. I think kind of
49ers coach on the hot seat.
1 through 10 would be a great tournament right now, and I don't think you could.
Yeah.
Money would probably flow fairly evenly across the 10 in handicapping it. There would be people who believe that any of these teams could win that tournament. Then the gulf is massive. You go 11, you could make the case, I think, from 11, and this is kind of the parity that's in the league, 11 all the way down. I'll go to 25. I'll cut it off at 25 with the Atlanta Falcons, who are starting to play pretty good brand of football as well.
No, they're still gutless.
They're not gutless anymore.
They
beat the Jets.
Matt Ryan the last 2 weeks has got like 800 yards, or last 3 games at 800 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's playing fine.
Lots of quitting them.
Well, they won. They just won. Nonetheless, those teams.
Who did they beat?
The Jets.
The Jets. They beat the Jets.
And they lost last week. They lost to the football team where they were up big and gave it all back.
They should have won that game. Yeah, but I'm just saying they're not on any week they're not trash. There are teams that are just not good in this league. They're not trash. I just think that whole tournament, that next group, like, are you going to say for sure that the Bengals would beat the Saints, the Steelers? Would you say for sure they're going to even beat the Patriots? No. Could they? Of course. But there's a lot of parity in that middle group. The top group doesn't have one truly dominant team, although the Bills are maybe saying that we are that team. You've got a lot of talent up there. Then you have a real solid group in the middle that if you're not minding your P's and Q's can beat anybody in the top 10 right now. And then there's a couple teams at the bottom that are just trash.
Final one real quick.
Higher or lower?
Seattle, ranked 13th. They don't have Russell Wilson now.
Yeah,
Should they be higher, lower, or just right?
Worse. Without Russ, they're not going to be as good.
Yeah.
This might end up actually being good for them. Do you guys remember when Tim Duncan got injured? Or was it David Robinson got injured, and then it allowed for the Spurs to draft Duncan number 1. If I were Seattle, I would almost – Russ ain't going to allow for it because he's going to come back as soon as he can and force play, and they're going to win a bunch of games that don't mean anything. But if they could really struggle, and against the NFC West they could, if they could go like a 4-13, a 5-12, and draft 6th, that might be their best path forward in terms of improving that team because they need a lot of help. There is something wrong with them regardless of the Russell Wilson injury. There was something wrong with them before that was going on that you can't put your finger on. All right, good job, Gibby, on that. Still so much more to come. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Beau Bishop here for Raising Cane's. So call a timeout, make the right play, and score some hand-battered chicken fingers on the drive with Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers. Bring home a box combo with 4 hand-battered cooked-to-order chicken fingers, crispy crinkle-cut fries, fresh coleslaw, buttery Texas toast, and Raising Cane's secret cane sauce. Top it all off with delicious iced tea or fresh squeezed lemonade. Game day never tasted so good, and a proud sponsor of Ohio State Athletics. Go Bucks. I know you'll be jacked up. NHL starts tonight, Z. You got it on the DVR?
Yeah, I'll have that right on the DVR. Yeah, very excited. Love to see them glide around the ice. One of my favorite games of all time, NHL PA 93. Classic.
Yeah, well, that was a classic for sure. It was interesting when they played the promo for it last night. Of course, Steve Levy loves hockey and has covered there for them in the last 20 years. But they played the old NHL Tonight music. And I was never a huge puckhead in terms of having to devour all the NHL. But that NHL Tonight music was one that is synonymous with my youth. So it will be good to have that back. It's all starting to get crowded. You got your NHL, your NBA coming back soon. Baseball playoffs going on, and football right in the middle of it. King delivering a weekend that it delivered. So lots of fun, kids. All right, the next level.